Hey, before we get started today, make sure you visit thefamboss.com and check out our new sponsors link on the page. That's thefamboss.com and check out the sponsors. Now let's get ready for the show.
Table turns into a board meeting between the laughter and the blessed greeting. We climb the ladder with a shared heart, building it together right from the start. This is the FamBoss Frequency, tuning in the spirit of the family tree. We scale the peaks and navigate the tides with strength of generations as our guides. Home is the office and the office is our soul, taking every dream and making it whole.
Welcome back, everybody, to the FamBoss Frequency. My name is Chris, and I'm your host. And man, what a week it has been. Wow, it's been a long week. So I am super excited to bring you into this week's episode. We've got a lot of great things to take a look at, and I'm going to share with you a 7-hour glitch that caused us to have a little friction this week. Give you a little peek behind the curtain with some things that took place with that. And then we're also going to wrap up with taking a look at, who are your partners? Who are your vendors? Who are the people that you do business with that actually care about what you do? Because God knows we love our people. We know our folk, whether our clients still or not, doesn't matter. They're part of the family. So we keep everybody wrapped up in that little group. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Stick around. Make sure you visit thefamboss.com, learn more about the show. Also, check out our sponsors link. We've got some great people that have added to the mix on sponsors. We've got some pretty great deals for you guys, too, on that. And then check out the 8554 podcast. Leave us a message, little listener hotline, if you will. We'd love to get your feedback. So let's get ready for the show today. Sit back, relax, and let's lock in. You work too hard for what you have to leave it to chance. Whether it's the shop, the warehouse, or the front porch where your family sleeps, you need eyes on the ground. And that's why I trust Eufy Security. We're talking crystal clear 4K resolution, advanced AI human detection, and my favorite part, 0 monthly fees. You own the hardware, you own the data, you own the peace of mind. Stop guessing and start protecting. Head on over to thefamboss.com/sponsors right now. Click the Eufy link to unlock exclusive FamBoss savings. You won't find these anywhere else, so secure your legacy today with Eufy. Welcome back, folks. This is Chris, your host, and wanted to let you know that we've got some sponsors now. We got a little sponsors link on our website. Visit thefamboss.com. Check out some of the folks that are with the show, and these are all actually products and services that we use. We appreciate what they do so much. We want to promote and help build those people up. So we really appreciate you swinging by and checking that out. So thefamboss.com, click on the old sponsors link there and see some of the cool things we actually do. And we've got more people that are being added on a regular basis. So check back often and see what we got going on. So here's what I really strive for in my business. There's a lot of people who are in business, and there's a lot of people who provide services, which I'm cool with. But not a lot of people give you the wow factor. Like when you go to the grocery store, a certain big box store where you can buy oil and peaches in the same building, they've even gone as far as allowing you the privilege of checking yourself out, which I think is kind of funny. As much as I spend to walk through that store and walk the acreage that's under one roof, the least you could do is provide me with that. And it's such a hassle when it comes to checking out, standing in line and waiting and hoping and all that. Then I just do the self-checkout thing like everybody else. I realize that we're murdering retail because we would rather go online and click a button and, it shows up at our door however long. But the point I'm driving at is when we provide a service, we don't just want to provide the service. We want to set an exceptional standard. And we're not always 100%, but we do our very best. And so, when that feeling when you close the deal and it's just a home run for the client, we just sold a comprehensive solution to this particular company we've had. And we've had several of these that we've been migrating over to a new telematics vendor. And the long and the short of it all was this particular vendor. We've gotten to know them. We understand their processes. They're owned in the States. Everything is the U.S. Customer support 24/7. It's been amazing as far as how they support our business. And so we can help them build and grow as well. That's the whole point. There's a weird uprising in telematics right now, and there's not really, you're kind of picking the best of the worst. So we have to make sure that we're duking it out in the back room, so to speak, so that we can give a good, presentation to our clients and keep our clients happy. They're used to a certain level of aesthetics and customer service that's simply just not in that aspect of the industry anymore with telematics. I don't know why it's so bad, but it has gone from bad to worse. So all that to say this, working with this particular vendor and we've been doing a lot of migrations with them lately, getting customers on board that have had issues with other vendors in the past. So they've already had a negative experience. So we want to make sure that when we're making that move, we take pride in, everything shows up. We make sure everything's good to go. And this particular vendor, one of the processes we go through essentially is when we get on site, we want to be able to plug it in, enter the information that's needed. And then when we're done, showcase, this is what it'll do. Let's get some training knocked out. Let's do some things. So, we started scheduling these things out, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, this vendor had made some changes in their processes that weren't really conducive to how we do business as a reseller. So we start the provisioning process, go through that pre-flight checklist as they were, and we started noticing that the accounts we were provisioning weren't in the system, and that's a problem. So once we discovered that issue, I could have flipped out and flown off the handle and started cussing and screaming at folks, but I kind of said, all right, so where's how far can we go before it's a problem? And so that's when my son and I started kind of working through, this is the issue and what do we need? And we don't know the back end of how it all works, but we know on our end, hey, if you don't have an account, you can't attach anything to something that doesn't exist. So that was kind of our mode of operation was, let's identify the problem when we reach out. And I never say, hey, look, this don't work. You'll never say that. It's, we've got to this point. This is as far as we can go in the process. How do we go to the next step? This is what we're trying to achieve. And they kind of found a chink in the armor on both sides. So I contacted my account manager and I said, hey, this is what I got. What say you? She said, oh my goodness, this is not good. And so, she stepped up and, got on the phone with the powers that be. And, we started kind of figuring out what the system failure looked like. And essentially the vendor had shipped all these units out without being sure they were ready to go in the field, which is why we do our pre-flight checklist, so to speak, to make sure when we get out there, it's got to work. So our process has always been, a premium value. And some people see it and some people don't, but, that's our goal, is to provide a premium value. So we go through this process, we explain what's going on, and, it doesn't matter what's going on with our vendor. The vendor is in a situation where, they got to make us happy to get paid, but they're not dealing with my client, and my clients know me and trust me. So when I pick up the phone and say, hey, we need to, take a look at, you've got a particular issue, that whatever you need to do, Mr. Black, it's not a problem. Hey, Chris, we trust you. Just get it figured out. We don't care what the fallout is. Let's get it done. We don't want to have this problem going forward. And that's a level of trust that I've been building in this industry. I've been in telematics and radio off and on since 2015. So even when I was working in, commercial car sales, I still had one foot in that world because that was a big part of what dealerships were trying to sell. So now that we have this failure, we know what the problem is. Now the big thing is, I want to know, how do we prevent this from happening in the future? Because this cannot continue. And so one of the things that we discussed was, what is your end result And then we started making steps on how to get there. It allowed Skylar and I the opportunity to start kind of going through and saying, all right, we've been doing things this way. Let's augment and again, if we would not have done the provisioning the way we always do it, we would have never caught this, and we'd have been caught out in the field with big trouble. So luckily for us, it delayed some of these installs, and we have a ton of installs to do in the month of April. But I'd rather delay the process a little bit so that we don't have to go back and figure it out. So what's the fallout? What's the drain of this? If this would have been a regular customer that would, let's say it's a company, John's dump truck service, he goes online and he says, I got 12 dump trucks. I need something. I need cameras. I need this. I need that. Let's ship him everything. And then, I've honestly heard this story more times than I care to admit, even with some of the big, I don't want to say their name, but even some of the big ones that spend a ton of money on marketing. You know what I'm saying? Sam, I am. Tons of money on marketing. They do really well. But the deployment is where most suppliers and the end user have the biggest disconnect. It's that provisioning. It's that programming. It's that, all right, we got it plugged in. It ain't working. You only get, one chance to make a first impression. So what did that cost us? It cost us about 7-8 hours between phone calls, emails, follow-up. You get the idea. To the vendor's credit, they had a meeting at the ivory tower level and said, hey, this cannot stand. We can't continue this. What do we need to do to fix it? So I can tell you that everyone that I dealt with, from my account manager all the way up, did an amazing job. We took this as an opportunity to say, hey, we're not really trying to, we're not, trying to point fingers and place blame. I just want it solved, and I don't want it to happen again in the future. So, we didn't play the ticket number game. We'll open a ticket and we'll wait and blah, blah, blah. If I were, just a guy with a website and we did drop shipping and the customer would have been the one sitting on hold, they would have been the ones losing 7 hours of productivity, not me. The difference is if I lose 7 hours of productivity to resolve an issue that I never have to see again, if I do this 100 more times, 100 times 7 hours, amazing. And again, we learn and they learn as a vendor, and we're very firm in our belief that it has to be right. I say that all the time. Like it doesn't matter. Well, you don't have to do this. You're right. It doesn't have to go through these extra hoops. But if you were the end user and you saw that, how would you feel? Especially like on some of those trucks we work on, man, the parking lots are dusty and gross and all that. Tell my guys, hey man, put a little piece of cardboard under your feet if you're getting dusty. You know what I mean? Like don't get dust and dirt in these guys' trucks. I don't care if they're filthy, but we're not going to add to the mess. So it's just that little bit of, I want it to be right. So, one of the reasons everybody goes online is, who get a better deal? Well, guess what? A great deal doesn't answer the phone at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon. I promise you that. A great deal is not there helping you find video footage of your driver that may or may not have backed into Miss McKenzie's mailbox for the third time this week. A great deal isn't going to reach out when they know that you've got kids that are driving and say, hey, let's pop a dash cam in there and I'll just add it to your fleet. Let's help these folks out, man. That's the whole point. So that 7-hour drain has a hidden cost. And that's okay if we resolve it. I tell my son all the time, like, I don't care that you make mistakes. I care that you learn and prevent them in the future. So partnership versus price. So how do we survive it? We didn't do it by following a help link to a website. We didn't work this out with a random person on the phone. I mean, I was able to pick up the phone and call my account manager directly because we have a relationship of working together. She didn't give me a ticket number. She gave me a solution. She worked hard day and night until she got a solution. By the way, I think they're 2 hours behind. They're in Arizona, so they don't celebrate daylight savings time like we do. So that makes life very interesting. But the bottom line is, that partnership will beat price any day of the week. There's so much value to that. So when the chips are down and your fleet's idling in the shop, you don't want a great deal from a guy, that's in a call center. You want a partner who knows your name. You want a partner who knows your business, and they'll stay in the trenches with you until the wow is back on the table. And that's what we do here at DCCI. We're your partner. When you have an accident and, vehicles have to be recovered, and while it's tragic and we don't like it, we're there to take care of it for you. Hey, we just got 6 trucks on the way in. We need radios installed. Not a problem, Chief. Let me know when they're going to be on the ground. All right, cool, man. No problem. We love it. It makes our lives so much simpler when it comes to, servicing those clients. Because again, we have that relationship. We know the trucks, we know the people. In a lot of cases, we know the drivers. It's kind of fun to watch the drivers bounce from company to company, but we built that relationship, and that's the difference. That's the difference in not dealing with a call center. So we have a partnership with our vendor, which means you inherently have that partnership as well. And that to me is one of the most important aspects of what we do in our business. So again, we took a negative situation, turned it into something that was positive. We had fun with it. We certainly enjoyed, the riff that goes with it. But let me tell you, there was another unintended consequence that took place on that. And I'm going to kind of peel the curtain back just a little bit and kind of share that with you. But it's a conversation worth having. So stick around and find out one of the bonuses we got out of this deal. Stick around for more.
Gas prices are climbing, and efficiency matters more than ever. Take control with the Freedom Bundle by DCCI. This isn't just a radio, with nationwide coverage on the nation's largest networks.
From mobiles to handhelds, our cloud-based dispatch gives you real-time location of every employee on the move. Stop the guesswork and start the oversight.
Best of all, there's zero equipment to purchase ever. Call 334-325-DCCI and get your first month of service for free with promo code BOSS. DCCI. Experience the difference.
Link up with the show. Visit thefamboss.com to learn more about the show, host, and guests. Also find our archive there from shows you may have missed in the past. You can leave a message on our listener hotline at 855 for podcast. That's 855-476-3227.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the next segment. This is Chris, your host. Of course, you already probably knew that. So, that whole debacle last week was kind of a bit of a nightmare, but had a bit of an unintended consequence, unfortunately. So, when you run a family business, there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration when it comes to your family. And one of the unique things about my business is my son works with us as on the tech side of the world. He's basically our operations manager. We're training him to kind of learn basically once it's sold, how does it work? Then once he learns that, he'll learn the sales process and all that goes with that. So in a family business, the line between shop and, Sunday dinner, as it were, isn't really a line at all. It's kind of a blur. This week, we kind of realized we were staring down a recovery mission of sorts with those accounts, and the pressure in the room was kind of high. And so when you're in a situation like this, I'm looking at my director of operations, who also happens to be my son, and we're having to navigate the situation where the boss in me wants perfection, but the father in me wanted to mentor, him through that situation. Because it's absolutely a life lesson to be learned here if you take that as an opportunity to learn. So, the mentor in me really wanted to say, hey, this is what you need to know to go through these situations and so forth. But the stakes really weren't just financial in the situation. They were very reputational. And one of the things I haven't really been quiet about, and my clients know it, and it's been a long conversation, telematics has kind of been on the bubble for us for a long time. We're doing the very best we can in an industry that is trying to collapse itself. I'm convinced. They keep getting bought out and sold and bought and sold. And it's one nightmare after the other. We're having to adapt as fast as we can. But when you're working with your own blood, every correction feels a little heavier and every bit of friction sparks a little hotter, I guess you could say. Let's be real. I'm probably more comfortable dealing with my kids than I am somebody that I hire off the streets. And the reason being, I will tell them what they need to know. I don't worry about HR. I don't worry about, are they their repercussions from this? My repercussions I deal with at home. You know what I mean? I deal with from my wife or whatever. That's fine. And we work them out. We move forward. We've been doing this a long time. I'm going to say something that's controversial, but it's true. I didn't grow up in a household where we had entrepreneurs. My mom's a school teacher. My dad did a lot of different things growing up. And the one I think he enjoyed the most was courier. He's a truck driver now. He's been a truck driver now for over 20 years. So I didn't have the only entrepreneurial spirit I really had growing up was when my dad decided he wanted to buy a truck and be his own boss. And I was fascinated by that. So the long and the short of it all is when you don't come from an entrepreneurial background, you kind of have to figure it out. I'm certainly first generation of that. Skylar is second generation. And while he's an employee on paper, he's really the guy that I plan on, molding to groom to take over the company one day. And he and his brother have that ability to do that. So now when you kind of have a clash like that in a family business, the line between that shopping Sunday dinner we talk about, it doesn't exist. You have to figure out how to navigate this. So you can't really build a legacy if you're afraid of the friction it takes to sharpen the next generation. So I want to be real honest about the tension when it comes to this, because I think it's a big part of the story, because a lot of times people get mad and upset. They never really address it. And I'm not that way. We have a knockdown drag out. We're going to discuss what it is, figure out where the friction came into play, and solve that problem going forward. We're not going to argue about the same thing over and over again. It's just not that. And we're not going to argue at all. We're going to resolve the issue. So we were both frustrated. We were both tired of the back and forth with the vendor. And in that moment, when Skylar was navigating the world of business ownership and I'm navigating the world of passing the torch, we start kind of staring at a pile of unprogrammed gear, and where we've got customers that we're waiting to install, and the clock's ticking. And anybody who knows me knows I'm gonna get it done guy. It's just how it is. We got a job to do. Let's get it done. Why are these things sitting on the bench? Let's get them out in the field. Why do we have radios stacked up? And it's always that way for me. So there are moments when we're trying to push through the frustration of the installation phase, and it's not matching our standards. It's not giving us the wow factor that we're always after. And, after a couple of days of fighting this, this stupid glitch, we're really just beyond frustrated. And so, he and I engage in a heated conversation about, something that was said. And essentially it's, I understand how the process of these things work. I've been doing this for a long time. And he reached out to support, and support said, well, it's not going to show up until it moves around and so on and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not even in the account. He's like, well, I'm just telling you what support said. And, I said, that's BS. That's not accurate. And, I said it, and I meant what I said. And I think it just kind of boiled over for him. And, got a little loud, got a little hostile. Things were said. Have you ever seen, was it Orange County Choppers back in the day where junior and senior would like launch wrenches and desks and tables and chairs, and like they just destroy the office, being so pissed off? It wasn't like that. It was pretty, we were on our way there. Like we were on that path, trust and believe. But, at the end of the day, I had to, kind of say, hey, look, I'm not talking to you as your father right now. I'm talking to you as your boss. And you need to understand that I come to the table with miles more experience than you have at this point. You'll get there, but today's not that day. And, he had to be able to hear it without, losing the dad in the process. And, one of the things that I'm really big on is I want my kids to do better than me. I've always been that way. And I feel like as parents, as fathers especially, as fathers, we are the only people in the world who want our kids to do better than we did. There's so many haters in the world. There's people who scroll my Facebook page, I'm sure. And, I've had people say negative things to me. But yeah, you're just perpetrating. You're this, you're that. Okay. And that's fine. And in their mind, that's what the story is. But in my world, in my reality, I want my kids to do better. And so I have to teach them that. So here's the magic with all this. Understand this wasn't an argument out of malice. It was really an argument out of perfection. It was really out of what do our standards look like to our end users, and what are we doing to help bring those standards to our end users? Because we have a certain way that we do things. And, we fight to build a better fortress, I guess you would say. And sometimes we have to fight each other. And while we're resolving that issue, Skylar and I sat down and we kind of built some checkpoints in to say, okay, what happened to get us here? Not just the friction of the disagreement, but how do we get to this point? And when you go back and you start deconstructing the situation being what it was, it's amazing. It was a breakdown in process. It was something that, a lot of it was beyond our control, and we're not used to that. We like to have control over our processes and our products and so forth. And we do that as much as humanly possible. But we really had to kind of delve in together and say, hey, what do we need to be doing here? So once we kind of went down that process of figuring out kind of how we got here, we kind of made a mutual agreement that, before it gets to this point in the future, we need to walk away. You need to, have respect for the fact that I'm not just your dad, but I'm also your boss. And I do also bring a lot of, experience to this industry to you, free of charge, by the way. Actually, I pay you to learn, funny enough. But we took that as a point to kind of sit back and regroup. And it happens from time to time. Anybody who tells you they work with a family business, it's perfect, they're lying to you. There's no way. Now, I'm not saying you got to, get into junior, senior, knockdown drag house like the buddies on, Orange County Choppers. That's actually kind of sad. But what I am saying is you're going to have disagreements and you're going to see things differently. And this is just a real world experience of what happened. So, the takeaway from this week was it kind of gave me a bit of a dual role, so to speak. I had to, as a father, teach him how to deal with, a supervisor, superior, somebody who's in a decision maker, somebody who's in a spot bigger than he is. And I had to coach that by kind of letting him know, hey, look, in this situation, I am your boss, whether you like it or not. And that's not something I flex. Anybody who's ever worked with me will tell you, I don't say, oh, such and such worked for me. They work with me. I feel like it's a team effort. At the end of the day, yeah, I make the decision. My name's on the loans, leases, everything else. Yeah, sure. But we work together to solve the problems. So any of you guys out there running into that family operation like this, you have to know which hat you're wearing. And sometimes you have to tell them which one's which. And I always thought, it goes without saying. No, it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, when the shop lights go off, the boss stays at the desk. And I'm really, really proud of what Skylar has become. He really has stepped up and helped me in more ways than I can ever begin to imagine. I know that he didn't grow up saying, Dad, I want to be in the radio industry and pick the 168 hours a week that I work. No, it's not easy. And it's something he's having to learn to navigate. Because again, if you want a job and a paycheck, I'm more than glad to do that for you. Sure. But if you want to take over one day, if you want to sit in a big chair, you got to learn. So, if you can lead your children through a crisis and still want to grab, a bite to eat afterwards, you're winning at the only game that really matters. And that's being a father. Now, irony at its finest, we had a knockdown drag out. We ironed out the details and particulars, and then we went to Publix and had a late lunch. Because that's what we do. But sometimes you have to hit those stumbling blocks to make it go from there. And, I never want my kids to be like, well, my dad was hard on me and I got nothing out of it. I'm hard on both of my kids because the world does not care about you. The world could not care less about your feelings. The world doesn't want you to succeed. Every time you turn on the news and you see, all this crazy stuff that goes on, one of the things that I'm very proud of is my nuclear family is still intact. My wife and I have been married for over 20 years. We have 2 amazing kids. we have such amazing stories with our kids as far as, how they came to be. Skylar has an incredible story, and Christopher's is equally as amazing. So, you want to make sure that when you got that family, don't forget that, and this kid that I'm, having an argument with, he's after perfection like I am. And in a way, it's kind of like arguing with myself. I've never done that, but it's kind of like that Jim Carrey scene in Liar Liar where he's in the bathroom, having an argument with himself. Like that's kind of how I felt, But again, it wasn't out of hate. It wasn't out of malice. It was out of love. And because we both want the same thing. And so I encourage you as fathers, as mothers, when you work with your children, just remember that. And a father and a mother are different, but they're equal. They bring different things to the table, period. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you kind of have to remember your role, They're definitely, they both bring a lot of power to the table. As a parent, you just have to remember that. And the way you model your behavior, your schedule, your tasks, all the things that you do, your kids are looking at that. And, for better or for worse, and it's just kind of funny how I see a lot of things in my son at 23 that I see in myself, but I didn't know those things about me when I was his age. It's the bottom line. And so I know, that when it's all said and done, he's going to have that ability to look back and say, all right, we learned from that. We're not going to make that mistake again. What can we do to kind of better ourselves going forward? And, that is something I can absolutely be proud of. I mean, why wouldn't you? So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of things that can be learned in that particular situation. And for us, we were able to take away, a good experience, and we're good. And like I said, I'll never allow business to steal my kids. It's just not going to happen. Sorry. I would rather them go somewhere that makes them happy than, destroy that relationship. The relationship with your kids are way too important. So coming up, we're going to talk about the box, the drop box epidemics, I like to call it. So stick around. Let us learn more. You work too hard for what you have to leave it to chance. Whether it's the shop, the warehouse, or the front porch where your family sleeps, you need eyes on the ground. And that's why I trust Eufy Security. We're talking crystal clear 4K resolution, advanced AI human detection, and my favorite part, 0 monthly fees. You own the hardware, you own the data, you own the peace of mind. Stop guessing and start protecting. Head on over to thefamboss.com/sponsors right now. Click the Eufy link to unlock exclusive FamBoss savings. You won't find these anywhere else, so secure your legacy today with Eufy. Welcome back. Thanks so much for sticking around and seeing what's what. So, the box dropper epidemic, drop box, however you want to call it, is something we see all the time. And I see it a lot in business technology, and it drives me nuts. And in a world of AI, it's absolutely unnecessary. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, so I was sharing something earlier about going to retail stores and so forth. And I had a particular product I was looking at. I actually been looking at buying a radar detector lately. I haven't had one in a while, and I used to have one back in the day. It was a lot of fun. Of course, that technology's gone nuts. You can spend $200, $300, $800, $900 on these things. And of course, radar detectors are kind of like, you don't want to buy a crappy one because otherwise it's going to cost you for sure in the end. But, it used to be I'd go down to Radio Shack, go to the local on a car stereo shop here. They had them and things like that. And it's just not like that anymore. It's kind of unfortunate, really. So we've become addicted to buying online. And one of the things that my son and I have been kicking around is because everybody likes to buy online, and social shopping is becoming such a huge thing, by the way. Had no idea how many people were buying QVC style, home shopping network style off the internet. So stick around. Y'all might see me on there hawking speaker mics and acoustic tubes in the not too terribly distant future. But, it's kind of crazy how we've had this certain evolution of that aspect of our business. So long story short, one of the things that kind of helped us solve this issue this week with the problem that we had was the fact that we had the relationship with the vendor and we know our people. And that's the big difference that we bring to the table is the fact that we know who we're dealing with. And I won't do business any other way. The irony is we had another rep when we started working with this company and I just wasn't a fan. And it was nothing that person was doing necessarily that was incorrect. They just weren't a good fit for what we do. And I can't explain that any better than that. Sometimes you're just not a good fit and that's okay. So we avoid the volume first thing. And that's, we want to sell a whole bunch of things to a whole lot of people. It doesn't really matter. I would rather sell a handful to qualified clients that are happy that will bring me someone else to the table than to go out there and sell the stuff to somebody who just doesn't care. And at the end of the day, I got to go out and acquire another customer. The easiest acquisition for me is the client says, hey, I was talking to X, Y, and Z and he told me to call you. All right, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And it happens all the time. So, the service gap between sending something out unprogrammed and unconfigured, bare bones, you're leaving the heavy lifting to the customer and the client. And a lot of my clients are experts in their field. They're not experts in installation and things of that nature. And I can tell you from a personal experience, when I look at buying something that I have to install, especially in my vehicle, I look at the hassle factor. What's it going to take? And remember, mine's a little different. I did car stereos and amplifiers and built speaker boxes and all that stuff back in the day. So my metrics are a little different. So I'm willing to go a little bit deeper than most people when it comes to those little projects, but not by much. But I will absolutely have no problem, taking apart dashes and digging deep. A couple years ago, I was pulling trailers for the band, and I just bought this F-150, and I knew it needed a brake controller, which is cool. I'm like, how hard can it be? I had to take apart half my dash to get to this stupid thing that was clipped in the back. I'm like, you kidding me right now? So, that whole, drop off a box, order, easy install. Look, if you mean easy install, you better mean it. I just bought one of those bullet point mount solutions deals in my truck. And if you're like me, dude, I've spent $1,000 at least in the last however many years buying a stupid plastic, universal kits, and it'll stick to your windshield. And, no, it doesn't. It always falls, especially here in Alabama, man. We make those things to a whole different shape. And I don't really like to drill into my dash because I change stuff out so often. This set of drill holes will turn to another set, and I can never reuse my holes that I've drilled. So I was really trying to avoid all that. So it took me almost 6 months to pull the trigger and buy this thing. But let me tell you, when it was easy to install, it was pretty easy. It took a little bit of time, but that's why, like I said, we're professionals in what we do. We look at that aspect of, the installation process for the client versus when we do it. Do you wonder why we don't sell these trackers and ship them to people? For this reason right here. If somebody makes a mistake, they don't know they've got a mistake. We do. And when you send something out to somebody and they say, well, it's not working. Oh, well, here's the problem. We never set your account up. What does that say to your customer? It says you don't matter. And that's not true. We require on our customers to be happy month after month. We don't make a lot of money on the front end. Our money comes over time. We're very much like the cell phone company. Yeah, we'll give you a free phone, but it takes us 2 years to make our money back. And we're cool with that. But if I don't have those customers that are sticking out the 2-year contract for whatever reason, that's very problematic for me and my business model. So, that's why we go through this process. The pre-flight, I don't know why I keep having a hard time with it. The pre-flight checklist, as it were. Before we go on site, let's make sure everything's active, ready to rock and roll, no problem. Whenever we're doing radio installations, we always make sure that we program the radios correctly and we fire every one of them up and, testing 1, 2, 3, make sure they talk to the appropriate groups. And when you don't do that, it causes you heartburn. Well, it takes 4 hours in the shop. Cool. So 4 hours in the shop or 8 hours in the field. By the way, the shop is air conditioned. It's inside. We got snacks in the refrigerator, bottles of water. If you bring your own soda, we got a refrigerator for that. Like, the shop is cool, man. When you're out there in the field, and more than likely in Alabama, it's going to be hot, real hot. We have a couple months that are cooler, a couple weeks that are cold. But yeah, for the most part, it's going to be hot. And when you're out there in and out and on your way and it works, it's a good look for the customer. And they like that. Also, when you're out there, in and out and on your way, you look like you know what you're doing. And it doesn't matter the problem that you're having. One of the biggest things I had to overcome was FYE. And not the place you used to buy CDs and tapes. FYE is a concept I learned many moons ago. And it's from another Ryan Stewman. His version's a little different. Mine's forget your excuses. Forget your excuse. When you're sitting there talking to somebody and they say, well, why does this work? It doesn't matter what the answer is you give them. It's an excuse. I tell my kids all the time growing up, I don't deal in excuses. Well, the reason I was late, I don't care. It makes no difference to me. The bottom line is you knew that you need to be home by 9 o'clock and you failed to meet the deadline, and you certainly didn't let me know. And that's just an example, but I don't have that problem with either one of my kids either. Skylar never went out enough to go out and, get in trouble. So thank God for that. Chris, on the other hand, 10 o'clock's 10 o'clock. He knows better. We've proven our point. But, when you set those expectations with your clientele, especially, sometimes that's the first bit of experience they've had with our company is getting that installation done. And once we install, we always go through the setup with the customer and say, hey, this is what we got. This is what we're doing. Let's go ahead and get you trained up a little bit. And we teach them enough to where either we can train the rest of their employees or we give them enough information to do that for themselves. So why does all that matter? What's the difference? I mean, I can hire a team to dial for dollars and ship stuff all over the country. I can do it very easily, as a matter of fact, but we don't. And the reason being, I spent 7 hours, just an example, I spent 7 hours on the phone with a vendor screw up because my name was on the line. Because I think that's good stewardship to take responsibility for an entire ecosystem for that solution. Even though it didn't have anything to do with me, I was the end result. I wanted to help them and make sure that worked out. That's our bottom line. We don't just ship hardware. We just don't. We install a promise that you'll never have to fight for your own technology, period. That's what it's all about here at DCCI. But it's not like that just in DCCI. It's like that in everything that we do. I've been very blessed over the years to watch my son, Christopher, go from, he likes to kind of play guitar, real quiet and this, that, and the other. And now he's built into someone who enjoys playing guitar publicly. And he plays at the church. And I tell him all the time, if you're not going to give it 110%, don't waste your time. Anything worth doing is worth doing well. You need to become proficient, become an expert at it, no matter what it is. That's what I'm working on with the podcast. And of course, you can't wait for perfection. You have to, get the reps and you have to understand. I hope my production value on this episode is better than last episode. And I hope that the website gives more today than it did yesterday. And I hope that we're building and expanding and growing because this is a part of not just, my personal brand or my family or my legacy. I'm leaving this behind for whoever wants to listen to it. Bottom line, I want it to be good. So that's kind of my thought for the day on that. Just the getting things in the mail. There's a huge difference, like I said, when you order stuff off the internet and you hope for the best. And I've dealt with some companies that'll do the stupid email thing back and forth. I'm like, really? Can I just call a phone number? No. And there's actually some pretty decent products out there that don't have phone support. That blows my mind. I'm like, dude, you sold thousands of these things. They're all over, Facebook and TikTok and all that. And y'all don't have an 800 number? No. They might have a WhatsApp number. What's funny is those, I've had to do a customer service with a couple of products I've bought like that. And I'll get an email at, 2:00 in the morning. Can you double check this, and this? Yes, I can, but it'll be tomorrow because I'm already asleep in bed. You know what I mean? I'm waiting for your response because we're on a different time zone. So, but we do all that for our clients. And I think that's important, in building our legacy is to make sure that people understand that we're there for the right reasons. We're there to help them make sure they have what they need. We want them to value us as a partner, not just as somebody they drop money to. I mean, we're not, we're here to get paid. Obviously, got to pay bills, but, we want to be there and be a partner for your business. We want to be that employee you don't really have to pay. That's the type of value. Look at the vendors that you're working with right now. Are they box droppers? Are they problem solvers? Are they adding hours to your workday? Or are they buying your time back? The world moves fast. And when you don't have 7 hours to waste on a cheap mistake, choose the partner who wants to work with you, who knows your family, who knows your fleet, and they're willing to stand in the gap when the tech fails you. We're building a legacy here at DCCI, and we're doing it one wow experience at a time. So, and we want to thank all of you who are part of our DCCI family for being there with us for all this. And I hope that you see the value in what we do. And if you don't have a need for our services, great. But if you know somebody who does, absolutely pass the word along. That's the best thing we can get. That's the biggest compliment we get is a referral. And we love it. We absolutely love our customer referrals. And we love meeting different people out there in the field that have heard of us and know what we're doing. So like I said, we appreciate that for sure. So ask yourself, are my partners good or do they have some room for improvement? Well, remember the report card needs improvement? There you go. Stick around for our closing thoughts. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. One more time. When you hear that sound, you know it's time. The show's coming to an end. I've really enjoyed spending time with you guys today. I hope you've enjoyed the time you spent with me as well. And I look forward to the next time we can get together. We'll have some more fun stories, peek behind the curtain kind of stuff going on for you. Make sure you visit thefamboss.com to learn more about the show. We've got sponsors on there now. We've got some things coming up with some guests in the not too terribly distant future. So we're really trying to build that aspect of it out. Leave a call on the listener hotline. That's 1-855-4-podcast, 855-4-podcast. And make sure you let us know what you think, what you'd like to see, criticisms, whatever you got, man. We're shooting for 5-star reviews here, but we'll take what we can get. Make sure you like, share, and follow. Share with a friend. And until next time, stay safe. We'll holler at you later.
From the front lines of your business to the heart of your home, we're building a legacy that lasts. You're locked into the FamBoss Frequency with Chris Black. To join the conversation, call the line at 855-4-podcast. Chris wants to hear what you have to say. Hit your voice on the air and let's move the needle together.